Today, I just want to talk a little bit about freedom. In America, in a lot of ways, we have a lot more freedom than the rest of even the westernized world. For all the social problems, economic problems, governmental problems, even cultural problems that we have, freedom generally isn't one of them. We have freedom of opportunity and usually equality of opportunity as well. We have freedom of speech. We have the right to be secure in our persons and properties, or we used to. We have the right to a jury by a trial of our peers, only if we're not labeled a terrorist by the government anymore. We have the right to be free of cruel and unusual punishment. Well, except for a substantial number of Americans still think it's okay to murder criminals because they're criminals. That would be the death penalty, or capital punishment as it's sometimes called. Now, I consider myself a liberal, and I generally do fall under that distinction at the broadest level. I am anti-death penalty. I am pro-choice. I am pro-equality. I'm pro-gay rights. I'm pro-women's rights. I'm pro-civil rights. I believe that people should have the freedom of their bodies and even what they put into their bodies. I am actually pro-drug legalization. And I am pro-freedom of religion despite being an atheist. However, I think there is something of a real threat to freedom throughout all Western culture, and it has mostly been a problem in Europe, but it's coming to America. Now, I consider most threats to be to freedom to be conservative in nature. I believe the most dangerous organization in terms of the threat to the freedom of Americans is the Republican Party. It's very easy for them to hold up a gun during a speech and say, look, I care about your freedom, look, I care about your Second Amendment rights, when that is virtually the only right that is under absolutely no threat in America, is the right to bear arms. We have virtually lost almost every aspect of the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th Amendments. And we don't even have all the real due, freedoms that are given to us by the 14th Amendment. We are not all considered equal under the law because there are still some people who think it's okay to discriminate against gays, transgenders, other races, still other religions. We have a very intolerant and hateful culture in America that is strong, it's vocal, it votes, and it's conservative. However, I think it's important, just consider this your public service announcement for the week, or for whenever you're watching this, that perhaps the new greatest threat to Western-based democracy, and especially American freedom, is actually liberal in nature. And it is the strongest, loudest current at this point in time threat to our greatest freedom, which is the First Amendment, our freedom of speech and our freedom of press. Now, the press is terribly unreliable in America, and it's crazy and whatever, but as for speech, as for what we can say online to each other in the public sphere, and even on television, the threat against that is liberal in nature. There's a sort of neo-Marxist left that's arising, and it's centered around one word. Now, some of you might be thinking I'm saying feminism, but no. Feminism is actually a subset of this greater set, and that's people who take offense. Oh, I take offense to that as blank, my freaking subgroup. I take offense to that as a woman. I take offense to that as a man. I take offense to that as a black person, as an Asian person, as a Native American, as a paraplegic, as a freaking disabled person, or whatever is the new word for that. There's a new one about every other year now for all of these things. The word offense, we were warned about by a great many people, and most recently, and one I'm most grateful for is Christopher Hitchens, who said, and I'm somewhat paraphrasing, but he pretty much said, everybody thinks that's some sort of an argument. Oh, I take offense to that. Well, fuck your offense, okay? Freedom of speech means that we protect all speech, especially if you disagree with it. As Voltaire said, I may not disagree, sir, with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. Ku Klux Klan, frickin' neo-Nazis, frickin' Westboro Baptist Church, any given psychopathic lunatic on Fox News or in the GOP, and any given lunatic on Tumblr who's going on about this or that or the other thing, whether it's feminism or some other kind of thing. A lot of it's anti-white racism, anti-men's sexism. It's simply the face of the evil which we have largely put behind us. Of course, nowhere near completely. But it's no longer popular in American culture to be racist. It's no longer popular in American culture to be sexist towards women. It's not even really popular in American culture at all, as far as the polls can tell, to be discriminatory towards gays or transgender. We, thankfully, by and large, as a social product of our national community, are properly liberal. And of course, there are people who are not. However, we're dealing with a group of people who are telling us, you can't say that. You can't say that. You can't think that. You can't do that. And a lot of them are simply saying, in the interest of protecting against bigotry, are bigots. Forced equality, not just of opportunity, but of speech. I mean, I don't know exactly how I stand on things like affirmative action, because there is a problem with discrimination in the workplace towards gays, and especially in hiring towards gays, towards blacks, towards any minority, and somewhat still towards women, although way less than any feminist would have you believe. However, now we're having this, you can't say that. We got protests in universities against people like, oh, you can't have that person here because they once said this or they once thought this. And there's this drive to a character assassinate, to shut people down, to demonize, to witch hunt in media. And it is a liberal directive. It is a liberal impulse. It is a liberal movement to destroy people's right to express themselves, however horrible or perceived horrible anybody is. And I am every last bit disgusted, revolted, and furious with these kind of movements as I am towards any Christian fundamentalist organization that's trying to push Jesus into the classroom. And I'm every bit as against saying things like, oh, if we're going to have people speak in university, we have a rule that women of color speak first, followed by white women, followed by men of color, followed by white men, because of some freaking just psychopathic leftist ideal that, like, in order to produce equality, we must crush those who are currently the majority or currently have the most, I don't know, material wealth, however these crazy people see it. But the idea that in order to empower women or minorities or any subgroup, we must crush the perceived majority, that is this psychopathic social Marxism that must be spoken out against, and it must not be supported because it is authoritarian. And in the same way that the Christian fundamentalist right wing that has seized control of the Republican Party over the past 30 years should be spoken out against, and hopefully ultimately should be stopped in momentum, of course not by any sort of radical means such as crushing the Christians' right to speak or crushing the Republicans' right to be insane. It should be to speak out against them and to unify and be loud against them. And I would never for a second crush or try to take away a psychopathic bigot's right to speak. How would you know what a psychopathic bigot looks like if you're not allowed to look at one, but only have what another psychopathic bigot tells you a psychopathic bigot looks like? You see where I'm going here? If you cut out a man's tongue, you're not telling the world that he is a liar. You're telling the world you fear what he has to say. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the nature of liberal cowardice. And it is every bit as wrong and dastardly and sinister as any right-wing authoritarian behavior and ideology. Authoritarianism is evil in all its forms. Have a good day.